Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 71478, the Neverwitch's Midnight Raven from the LEGO Dreamzzz theme. This set contains 1,203 pieces, 5 minifigures, and will retail for $99.99 in the US. This set does not officially release until August 1st, 2024, but it was gifted to me early for review by the LEGO Group through the LEGO Ambassador Network, but all opinions expressed in this video are entirely my own. Now, this is a LEGO Dreamzzz set, and just like all LEGO Dreamzzz sets, this set has an alternate build. I will be covering both builds in the video, so make sure to watch the video all the way through if you want to see both. And also make sure to let me know in the comments which LEGO Dreamzzz set you want to see an early review on next. I'm reviewing the entire wave, and I have quite a few videos up on the channel right now, but there's still a few sets to go, so whatever's the most popular is the one I'll do next. But now, with all that being said, let's get into the review. So here's the Neverwitch's Midnight Raven, and this is a set I was very excited for because it reminded me a lot of the Nightmare Shark ship from the first wave, which was one of the best sets of that wave. And there are a lot of similarities between these two sets, but I think this does a good job to stand on its own as its own thing. Now, something I find a little bit weird about this set is it's not our only, bad guy Raven of this wave. There's the $45 Neverwitch's Nightmare Creatures set, and the main build of that set is also a Raven, just a smaller one. However, while I thought the Raven build of that set was just okay, I think this one is actually phenomenal. So let's move up a little closer and take a look at all the intricate details of this build. Starting at the face, I absolutely love the shaping here, especially on the beak. They use this large Technic claw or tooth piece down here to be the bottom part of the beak, and that creates a really nice slope that makes everything feel somewhat organic. Now, the beak is always somewhat open, there is a little bit of a gap there, however, you can actually properly open it up too. The bird's super funny looking when it's screaming, and it's really easy to close back up. And the way this is done is incredibly creative. You can see there's this classic LEGO tooth piece at the front of the beak, and on the underside of the actual tooth part, there's a little crevice. That's the perfect size to fit the tip of the bottom part of the beak, and it serves as somewhat of a locking mechanism to keep the beak in place. Now, it's super easy to still open because there's very little resistance there, but it makes it so when you're moving this around, that's not just going to fall out of place. You do have to manually grab that, even though it's super easy to do. That's a small detail, but I love how that was done. Probably one of my favorite parts of this set. We've got some super cool printed yellow eyes for the Raven too, and those are very striking. They contrast really well with the color scheme of the rest of the build. And then I love how they did the texturing of the feathers, which we'll see all throughout this build. But they used this slope piece, which is often used for feathers or fur. But then also some of these curved tooth pieces in black, which that's a fairly common part, but I don't know if I've ever seen it used as feathers before. But it works surprisingly well. I actually really like how that looks. And you can see it's used in both directions in different parts of the build. On the bird's back, there's a cauldron for the Netherwitch, and it's surrounded by this green fire. That's made to pop off and be very easily removed. And here's how it looks on the own. The actual cauldron piece on the inside is an all-new part for this wave, and it does come in multiple sets. But it's got sort of a shell design. There's two halves to it, and they combine in the middle with this part. That part you can see also has a sticker of the Neverwitch's symbol on it, and there's one of those on the other side too. And then the cauldron also has two holes on the other sides, and there's a little build inside there that sticks these wheels through them. The cauldron's a very cool new part and does fit the Neverwitch perfectly. I'm quite happy to see it comes in more new sets. Returning to the Raven's back, you can see the cauldron actually connects to this purple jumper piece, but with it removed, there's also a trapdoor that can open up here. Inside of here, there's really not a ton going on. You can see it's mostly dark. There's a flat tile in the bottom and a little window at the back to peek out into the next section. But yeah, this could be used as a place to trap prisoners or as just general storage. Or perhaps this is where the evil doppelganger characters are meant to rise out of, since it's right below the cauldron and the cauldron's where they're made. Obviously, it's LEGO and it's up to your own interpretation, but I love the trapdoor piece, always happy to see it included, and this set is no exception. Behind that, there's these hanging capsules, and these are the collectibles of this wave. I believe there's 6 or 7 or 8 to collect in all the different sets, and you get a total of 3 in this set, 2 here and 1 on the actual Neverwitch. And I don't know the full context of these in the show yet, because these are based off LEGO Dreamzzz Season 2 Part 2, but I believe they're either meant to be realms that are captured or memories that are captured. But anyway, you can see this one's a windmill with a little skull, and this one I think I have upside down, but it's a pyramid, and there's a forest back there too. They're cool to get, but they do come in multiple sets. I like how they hang here though, they do add to the overall look of everything. The wings on the sides are phenomenal, and easily the best looking parts of this build. My favorite part is just how they did all the feathers. Again, there's those tooth pieces we looked at before, but then there's also the larger Technic claw pieces back here to be bigger feathers. And then there's these little magenta spikes which add some nice color, and again the shaping is great to be like bird feathers. And then the coolest part, at the end we have 3 of the Ninjago crystallized crystal blade pieces. Now these each connect on mini ball joints, so you can pose them individually if you want. If you want to have the wing flapping upwards or going downwards, that's an option you have. Alternatively, you could fold it in like this or open it more up like this. It's entirely up to you, but I love that the posability is there. And the crystal blade pieces are actually a new recolor for this set. From initial impressions, I thought it was just the same trans pink ones from the crystallized sets. But no, this isn't just normal trans pink, this is sparkly trans pink, which is usually used in LEGO Friends and LEGO Disney Princess. But that is a very, very cool change and makes this feel extra special. And the aesthetic feels distinct from Ninjago Crystallized, which I'm happy to see because I was worried this was too Ninjago-esque. But no, this is distinctly its own thing. I will say the sparkly pieces usually look a little yellow in my light box. I assume that's just because I have such bright lights in here. But in other lighting, they're a little more blue, a little more purplish, obviously still with pink as the base color. So what you're seeing on camera isn't the best representation of them, but they do look very, very cool. The entirety of the wing sections connect onto the body with a double rigid Technic joint, so you can move the entirety of them up or down, so that way you can have the bird actually flap its wings through the air. And you can also spin it around a full 360 if you wanted to do that. There we go. Everything's the same on the other side, of course, too. Looking underneath the wings, there is another section on the body of the bird. It uses like these large purple spiderweb pieces, which I believe come from the 4+ Spider-Man sets. I've never actually gotten any of those, so it's very exciting to get this here, and it fits surprisingly well. Obviously, a much different context than Spider-Man, but yeah, purple spiderweb absolutely fits the Neverwitch. But anyway, these can hinge open, and this is meant to be a little jail cell. There's a jumper piece where a minifigure can sit, some tooth pieces, a little gem, as well as a gold coin. That gold coin is printed, but it's not new or anything. It originated in a CMF, and has come in many sets since then. And then at the very back, there's a spring green egg piece, which I believe originates in one of the botanical sets. It's a more uncommon color for that part. I know I have gotten it recently in some other sets, so there are other ways to get it, but it's still nice to get here because it is more uncommon. And yeah, minifigure can be tucked away in there and trapped. Coming back up onto the bird's back, here we have the little hut. There's a little rocky pathway that leads to it, which is cute. These spikes right here can be moved up and down, and there's some jumper pieces to pose figures too. These varied stairs honestly look pretty nice. It's a very common technique, we've seen it many times before in lots of other sets, but that doesn't mean it's not effective, it still looks quite good here. And then the actual house is adorable from the outside. It looks very cartoony in the best way possible. Like these curved pieces on the edges give it a really unique shape, even though the actual build is quite rectangular. And we've got like Lego dot style designs up here on the roof too. They use Ninjago dragon horn pieces on the edges as well, and I think those look really good. And then one side even has a chimney coming out the top, and that's angled in a very funky way, and then you have this puff of smoke coming out the top. And that's, of course, the LEGO Monkey Kid smoke piece, though recolored in sparkly trans pink. Always cool to see that part outside of Monkey Kid, it's a really good one. The windows of the hut have like little jail bars, and there's plants growing out the sides too. It certainly feels like a place where a witch would practice her magic. And this is a very small detail, but you can see there's a bit of dark tan at the bottom here. That's on both sides of the build. And what that's supposed to be is, of course, up to your own interpretation, but the way I see it, at least, is like that's a little nest. Because as we'll see in just a moment, this set rebuilds into a house with little bird legs. So you can imagine it like perched up here in a little nest being a part of the big bird, and then if you rebuild it, the house detaches and becomes its own creature, but this is like where it's meant to live. And I think that's a super cute idea. If you want to get inside the hut, the top hinge is open, and of course the door at the front can open up too. And what's actually inside is nothing too crazy. There's tons of room to pose minifigures, which is very nice to see. Despite this being a relatively small build, you could probably fit a few in there. But you have a table in one corner with a sparkly purple gem on it. That's a very cool part, but it is fairly common this year. It comes in most, if not all, of the LEGO City Space sets, and I know it's in like one of the 4+ Ninjago sets too. Still a good part though, I'm happy to see it's here. And on the other corner, there's an identical table though with a plant growing out of it. I like the sort of unnatural colors they chose there for that. That's actually all there is though for what's on the floor inside here. However, attached to the roof that I opened up, there's some more cool parts. These I assume are all meant to be like potion ingredients for the Neverwitch. You got this piece that's sparkly blue, this is trans pink, this is just trans light blue. This looks to be like a little pepper or something. On the other side, there's a trans red potion bottle, another thing in trans orange. This is in sparkly white. And then we have another one of those printed coin pieces right here. This is perfect for an interior in my opinion. LEGO Dreamzzz has often had an issue where the inside of the builds are just very lackluster, like very empty. But I think this strikes a good balance where it's open enough that there's still room to pose figures, but there's lots of things to play with in there. You got the 2 tables and then tons of stuff on the roof. I'm very, very satisfied with this. And then finally at the very back behind the hut we have the tail. This connects on little hinges and can move up and down, and the parts used are very similar to what's used on the wings. I will say I don't think this looks as good as the wings, it's maybe a little bit flat in comparison, but honestly that's only because the wings themselves look so good. This is still very solid and I'm fairly happy with it. It ends the build off pretty nicely. And I think that's about all I have to show you for this version of the Neverwitch's Nightmare Raven. Overall, I really like this build. It does a great job to strike the balance of being fun for play, having room to display minifigures, while also being a fairly nice looking display set. I'm looking at this and like, do I have any real critiques of it, like at all? The tail's honestly the worst part, looking a little bit flat, but that's like not an issue at all. It still looks really good. So yeah, I'm realizing I kind of really didn't have anything bad to say about this, did I? Genuinely very good set. I'm quite happy with this. However, I'll talk about all of that a little bit more at the end of this video. For now, let's take a look at the instructions, because just like all LEGO Dream sets, there's illustrations in the instructions which I think look cool. So here's the very front with the main build that we just looked at. Here's one of Mateo and Z-blob discovering the Neverwitch and the Raven. Here's a bunch bunch of the characters fighting, which looks very cool. And then when you get to bag 8, you're left with a choice. There's 2 different builds you can make. The first one's, of course, the one we just looked at. And the second one has the house stand up, and you build this little spider, while the raven's just left without them. Here's the full illustration of the main build, and the full illustration of the alternate build. So now let me take this set apart and rebuild it. Here's the alternate build all put together, and you can see the one build is now separated into 3 builds, so let's take a look at each of them one by one. So the first build is this sort of Baba Yaga style house with legs. The actual house build is very, very similar to the one we looked at on the original build. There's only a few little differences. But this is such a cool idea that I feel like fits LEGO perfectly, and I'm surprised we've never seen anything like this before. At least not to my knowledge. The bird feet obviously fit with the whole bird theming of this entire set, and the whole nest idea that I talked about in the original build. And they repurposed the Ninjago dragon horn pieces here to be like the tops of the thighs, and I think that works surprisingly well. The legs are very thin, which I'm happy to see because it makes them feel very bird-like, but the build's still super stable. It's not like toppling over or anything. And then the feet I think are alright. I do like the overall shaping. The toes at the front especially look really good. I will say all the open studs isn't like the best look in the world. It probably is a better looking option, but considering this is an alternate build, I think this is perfectly fine, and it works pretty well. And the use of these rounded pieces gives you a little bit of posability too. You can move the feet in if you want like this, or open them up even further. So that gives you more options for display. In terms of articulation on the actual legs, they can't actually move forward or back or anything, but there is a swivel at the top of the thighs, so you can move the feet around like that. The actual house, you can see, is almost identical from the outside. The only real big change is the Ninjago horn pieces aren't up here anymore. Now there's just 2 little spikes instead, and on the backside the horn was just entirely removed and nothing replaced it. Inside of the house, though, is exactly the same. You got potion bottles on the walls, tables on the inside. Overall, I really, really like this. This is super creative and a ton of fun. It fits the LEGO Dreamzzz world, and I also think it's just a great model to have on a shelf. Then the next build's a spider that uses the cauldron for its body. That's super creative, I really like that. The back section too, using 2 of the web pieces together, looks great. And you can see the collectibles of this wave can be held in there. And like, they can move around when you move this up and down, but they are properly trapped inside. They did a good job to make it look like the spider has multiple eyes, and I love the little pincers at the front. That's really cute. The legs are done in a creative way. I like all the fire coming out the top. That looks great. And then there's 8 total legs, 4 on each side. And the posability on them is actually quite good, because this entire leg section can move as just like one structure. So you can rotate that a full 360 to pose however you want. And then you have these little hinges on each of the legs too, to move the front leg or back leg in or out. All of that's identical on the other side too. My only issue with this is the middle of the body's a little bit too heavy, so if you try to properly pose this with like all the feet on the ground, something like this, it might hold that pose for a second, but eventually it crumbles under its own weight. Actually, it seems to be holding up somewhat well right now, but yeah, the more I move it, the more it falls. So unfortunately, the middle of the body's just a little bit too heavy for how they did the feet. That's not the end of the world, and you can still get good poses out of this, like even slightly collapsed, like this does still look good. But that's definitely something to be aware of. Maybe you could customize the feet a little bit to make them a little more sturdy. All things considered, I'm pretty happy with this. We've gotten lots of little spiders in many LEGO themes before. Monkey Kid had them, Ninjago had them, but this one feels very different from all of them, and I think it's incredibly solid. So overall, fairly satisfied with this. And then here's what's left of the actual Raven, and I think this is okay, but it's missing like all of its distinguishing features. Without the house and the cauldron and all the little stone structures on the sides, the Raven is left looking very flat. The studs are also somewhat ugly looking, like more feathered pieces like these would have been nice to include here. Obviously this is an alternate build, so I get why it is the way it is. But yeah, this looks significantly weaker if you have the other 2 parts together. The dungeon area on the inside too is now completely open. There's no webs to like hold people in place anymore. However, with all that in mind, there is still a lot of really strong aspects to this. The head still looks great because it's exactly the same thing with the wings. And the tail is more prominently featured now that the house isn't in the way. So overall, between the 2 builds, obviously the main build is a massive downgrade from the original, but it still has some positive qualities. However, the newly introduced side builds in the alternate build are really, really good. The witch hut with legs is obviously the highlight, but the spider's pretty great too. Overall, between the 2 versions, I do think I prefer the original just because everything feels more complete, and that is a really good build in its own right. But if you do really like the house or really like the spider, this isn't a bad option, and it's also not too difficult to switch between the 2. The spider takes a little more time to put together because it doesn't really reuse any of the builds from the original set, but the house is very similar to the original. All you have to put together is the legs, so it doesn't take too long to detach and reattach the house if you really wanted to. And I think that's all I've got for the builds of this set, at least for now. Again, I'll talk about them more at the end of this video, but for right now, let's take a look at the minifigures that this set comes with. So here's the first minifigure in the set, the main villain of the wave. We have the Never Witch. This is a surprisingly common minifigure. She actually comes in quite a few sets, but she is a really good one, so I'm happy to see that. Starting with her accessory, she has this giant staff with another one of the collectibles at the top. This one has like a little castle inside it with an hourglass at the top and some gears on the sides. That's possibly meant to be the Sandman's Tower, though I'm not 100% sure on that. And I like the use of the little bull horns down here. That looks really good too. Removing the accessory so we get a better look at the actual minifigure, you can see she also uses this like ghost tail piece. That originates from LEGO Hidden Side and then was later reused in like Ninjago. But the colors are great. It's dual molded in solid black and trans pink. And that is kind of the Neverwitch's whole aesthetic, like all the villains this wave use that. But on this part especially, it looks really, really good. But removing that too, here's a better look at the actual minifigure up close. Something I haven't mentioned I don't think yet is this figure's actually very inaccurate to the character's appearance in the show. That might change in Season 2 Part 2, but at least as far as we've seen, this is not what she looks like in the show, so that's a little bit weird. But the figure's so good, I honestly don't mind so much. Hairpiece is fantastic, it's dual molded in coral and black. The crown looks super spooky, and I love this little raven charm that she has on the back. And the curls in her hair too are a really cool touch. Removing the hairpiece though, there's a look at one side of her face. She's got like this magenta streak that goes over one eye. And then the entire design of her torso is all like these swirls. And it's kind of hard to parse like what kind of clothing this is supposed to be. It looks more ethereal and magical. But that is kind of perfect for a witch, and especially one that you see in your nightmares. Things don't have to make perfect sense, and she's a very cool looking minifigure. So I honestly really love this design. She's got her symbol in the center of her chest right there, and you can see that's connected to a little necklace. But a metallic silver used, which is very pretty. And then this face print's great. It's a very sinister expression. Tons of personality to it. I feel like she probably could have used like a cape or something, but when you have the ghost tail attached and the staff in her hands, she does still feel like a complete minifigure. So yeah, as I've said, really love this one. Happy she comes in so many sets, and of course it makes sense for her to be in this one. Here are the next two minifigures in this set. We have Dizzy and we have Dogan. These are of course more villains, and the whole gimmick of the villains this wave is they're evil doppelgangers of the main characters. So this is of course an evil version of Izzy, and this is an evil version of Logan. Weirdly, their good versions don't come in this set, which most of the other sets that is the case, they're like fighting themselves. It would have been nice to get them here, but I suppose it's not the end of the world. And yeah, both of these minifigures have really good designs, Dizzy especially. I love Dizzy's hairpiece. It's of course the original Izzy hairpiece, though now dual molded in black and trans pink. And that gives it a very different look because Izzy's hairpiece is entirely transparent. This brings over some solid color into that hairpiece. So now you can really appreciate the texture that it has, and it looks fantastic. She also has a waist cape too, which is surprising to see, but very appreciated. It's like wavy at the edges and has all these little tears in it to make her feel more like evil and corrupted compared to the normal version of Izzy. And then the printing on her torso and legs is great too. Everything's tattered just like on the waist cape. That creates some cool variation between these guys and the original figures they're based on. And then both of these two have this all new armor piece. And it's like a very small, subtle piece of armor, like it doesn't stand out a ton. But I think especially on Dizzy, where it like matches her hairpiece, it does really add a lot to the figure. It makes her feel a little more three-dimensional. Taking that off, there's a full look at her torso print. I think the yellow is spectacular here. That's easily the best part of this figure. And she's got the Neverwitch's symbol on her belt. But that yellow really ties everything together. Like, that makes this feel like a fantastic minifigure. And there's the back torso print where it's still present too. Face print I think is a little bit weird. I don't really know what that expression is trying to communicate. But this one's pretty good with like the wide evil smile. And then Dogan I feel like is surprisingly common this wave. I've reviewed a lot of sets that he comes in. But overall I like this one. The magenta skin's very cool because none of the other like evil characters have that. And that's of course to match the original Logan's blue skin. This guy definitely could have used some dual molded legs because he looks a little bit weird from the back without them. However, just like Dizzy, I like all the tears in his outfit. And again, that Neverwitch symbol in the center. And then my favorite detail of this guy is around the back he has these 3 big scratch marks. And that's because on the original Logan has like a logo that has 3 scratch marks on it, but it's not like actual scratches. But for his evil version, they turned them into actual scratches, and that looks super cool. Face print on one side, again, very evil smile, just like all the other characters. He's got like yellow teeth and fangs, and then there's a full look at the angry expression we were already looking at. And then here are the final 2 minifigures in the set, 2 hero minifigures. We have Mateo and we have Astrid. Mateo I won't spend too long on because I feel like he's been in every set I've reviewed so far, so I've talked about him lots. He's got an all new jacket piece, which I have mixed feelings on, but again, check out my other reviews for my full thoughts on them, as well as this like goo tank on the back that has lightning that shoots out the front. Now that exact accessory does come in other sets too, so it's cool to see that consistency, and I think it looks great. The lightning piece is awesome, and I love the new hourglass hilt piece in the center here. But then you also get the regular z-blob as an accessory, which is always a nice touch. He was pretty rare in the first wave, but he's very common now, but I do still like seeing him. And with the back attachment removed, this figure is super detailed. Love the leg print, especially with the shoes, and it's dual molded too. You can see the vest jacket piece has the stud at the back for the back attachment, attachment. And there's a full look at the front of Mateo's torso with like the little z-blob t-shirt, and a full look at his face print, and there's the back torso print and alternate face. And then finally we have Astrid, who's a fairly exciting minifigure to get, because she's a pretty important character in Season 2 of LEGO Dreamzzz, but we've never had a minifigure of her before, and she is exclusive to this set, so that is very, very nice to see. She uses the newer like avatar wheelchair piece here, and it's got like this rocket attachment at the back, which looks super cool. However, one big issue with this figure is the hairpiece, because this is just not what it is on the show at all. Again, Season 2 Part 2 hasn't aired yet, so there's a chance our hairpiece is changed for this in Part 2, but at least as far as we've seen this character in the show, this is not what she looks like. And that's a real shame. I'm not a fan of this face print either. It's the one they use on Camille in the Ninjago City markets, but it's just a generic LEGO City face, and I think it works fine for like LEGO City criminals, but it feels too intense and evil for a character like this who's supposed to be a child and like on the good guy's side. However, removing her from the wheelchair and taking a look at her torso and leg print, those are actually both really, really good. She's in like these Dream Chaser robes with a tie underneath, and that's very similar to what we saw in the show, and those robes actually continue all the way down into her legs, and I love like the metallic gold printing on the trim of everything. This is a torso and leg print combination I would love to see more in LEGO Dreamzzz. I hope this goes up on LEGO's Pick-a-Brick, because if you're a fan of the show, I could absolutely understand wanting to get extras of these to build more Dream Chasers. It's super cool to get like a more official uniform. You can see there's the Hourglass logo on the back too, and there's a full look at the front of the torso with the hairpiece removed. So yeah, I'm super glad to get this character. It's a shame the face print and hairpiece are just not accurate at all, but the torso and legs are really, really good, so maybe you can customize this figure to make her a little more accurate to the show. I'm glad this character was included though, and I hope she comes in more sets in the future. But now, overall, what are my thoughts on this set? I honestly really, really like this one. One thing I haven't touched on yet is the price, and it's $100, and I think that's pretty fair for what you get here. It's 1,200 pieces, and it's a fairly, like, big build. Maybe one or two more minifigures would have been nice, because only 5 for $100 does feel a little bit low. But the piece count's solid, the build's a decent size, and the actual quality of the build is really, really good. This is the kind of set that I absolutely adore because there's stuff to play with, but it also looks really good on display. In the original build, basically every single aspect is exactly what I would want it to be, and I really don't know how I would improve it. The alternate build is honestly really good too, and not too difficult to put together. The alternate build does leave like the bird feeling a little bit weird, but it is an optional alternate build, right? You don't have to put that one together if you don't want to. So would I recommend this set? Honestly, yes, for sure. If you're a fan of the LEGO Dreamzzz show, this is one I highly recommend you pick up. You get some cool characters here, and the build is really, really good. If you're looking for a cool set to play with, there's lots to do here. You got the hut, you got the prison, you got the trapdoor, you got the cauldron. Or if you just want a nice set for display, I think this looks really good too. So yeah, I'm incredibly happy with this. The LEGO Dreamzzz design team did a fantastic job. I haven't built everything yet, but this might be my favorite set of the wave. The C-Rex is pretty good too. But I don't know, I had a few criticisms of that one. I didn't really have that with this one. So yeah, this is really, really great. I'm very happy with it. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to my channel if you're new. And let me know in the comments which Summer 2024 LEGO Dreamzzz set do you want to see an early review on next. But as for this video, I think that's about all I have to say, so thanks for watching everybody, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!